Mainly, when I'm engineering, this is the way I learned, is that you should be making it sound the way that you want it to sound at the very end, the second you hit record. For this recording, we had 5 channels of Blue Stripe and 7 channels of Rev D. When setting up for Chad Smith, he's definitely a hard hitter. I knew that we needed blue stripes for a little bit more grit. We did that. We used that on snare drums, on the snare drum mics. The Rev D we used for the kick drum, so it wasn't so distorted. It was letting a little bit of the puffy low end through. We used the Rev D stereo for the overall drum sub mix. Some compressors let low end through, some compressors kind of take it away, kind of do a little bit of EQing. I find the Blue Stripe to do a little bit of EQing, take a little bit of low end away, and so that was why it was sort of perfect for the snare drum. It kind of did a little bit of a EQ thing there for me. The Blue Stripe giving a bit more grittiness to that sound was important to me. I wanted to be able to sort of crank it into the compressor, give it a lot more grit, so I had that on tape. And I want super fast attack and super fast release compression, because it's going to be going back and forth like this, kick and snare, kick and snare. And the Blue Stripe ended up working great for that. We got the crunch we needed for the bottom snare mics and the crunch for the beater head side of the kick drum. And for me, and just the way that I record drums, that ends up typically being one of the main parts of the sound. So having the Blue Stripe on the kick snare and also on both the snare mics, the 2 snare top mics, using all that compression acted like a glue for the overall drum sound. A lot of times putting all the drums through a stereo compressor can present a problem, in my experience, because the kick drum is going to make the compressor hit in a funny way. You're going to hear the drums kind of sucking back and forth and pulling, and the fact that there is this wet-dry mix knob on there is amazing. Kind of dial it, sort of sub-mixing in one unit. As well as the high-pass filter, because now the kick drum's not really hitting the compressor in a way that's going to cause it to sound funny. I can dial that out. It lets the kick be a little bit more punchy, crushes the rest of the drums, and you have this really great sort of stereo submix of drums. It's just another way of doing things. You can only put a little bit of that kick drum into the compressor, and then you have to bring the dry kick drum signal up separate. Whereas this, it kind of all happens at once. You're taking steps away in a really good way. It makes things easier. The Rev D stereo on the overall drum mix gave me the kind of, I say blown up, but the compressed but still tight drum compression that I always look for in a stereo compressor. There's always going to be a stereo sidechain drum compressor involved with anything that I do, for the most part. Rock drums, even just kind of any drums. So that as an overall stereo drum compressor worked amazing. All the features, all the new features. The compression was fantastic and really ended up making the drum sound what it was. I chose the cleaner sounding compressor, the Rev D, for Cory because Hammonds have their own distortion and grit. You really don't have to add much of any sort of color to that instrument. It just kind of does it all for you. So there was no reason for any sort of extra distortion from the compressor. So the Rev D worked perfectly for that. I also, as an engineer, tend to make B3 just a stereo track. So there's two top mics getting that swirl, and then the low mic for the low speaker, we use the WA76 stereo, where I was able to high pass filter out and not have that compressor grabbing those low frequencies so much. And so I was able to just kind of blend it all together and print it stereo instead of 3 mics. His dynamic was just huge, and B3 organs can just overwhelm things, and then all of a sudden you start getting overs in Pro Tools, and so that was happening. I was having a ride. I was riding the compressor, I was riding the mic freeze. I was kind of 3% of Cory's dynamic, you know, in here. He was doing all the rest of it. I was just kind of just making sure it all got in without squashing it compressor wise. When it comes to bass compression, I don't like to take away a lot. A good bass player take away a lot of dynamic. I'd rather just let that kind of happen and kind of flow through. Especially with just 3 guys out there, you can let things kind of. You're not trying to like rein in one thing and make everything sit where it needs to sit. With just those 3 guys, you can just let things loose a little bit. We did use some 76 compression on the bass mic, and it ended up sounding really good. Definitely a little bit slower release. Like I let it kind of like, when the meter kind of sits and it kind of compresses like this a little bit more, I like that, and it ended up sounding really good. Especially that amp, we kind of made a little bit more grindy sounding, and it worked out great. On the 251 room mics, we had 2 sets of room mics. One were the 44s. Those were just kind of up, lightly compressed. The 251s, we used the blue stripe, and we did the magical all 4 buttons in for that. And there's a very strange sort of mojo-like thing that happens when the all 4 and engineers know all this. It's just there's a wild compression that happens, and with that mic combination and that compressor and that room, it just sounded awesome. Really good crushing drums, and I like that sound for rooms. Yeah, I wasn't surprised at all. Everything sounded really good. They were just jamming. It was just them out there kind of feeding off of each other, and they're out there having a blast. I was having a blast just watching it all happen. I think overall it was just this amazing sort of like impromptu jam session. It was great. It was really fun to watch and be a part of.
That was good. That was good. That was good. That was fun. That was